We want our picture by the bus just in case.
Okay, just in case.
Just in case.
Who's gonna fight for the back seat?
I already called it.
Maybe.
Together?
Hey. I think
This is a crew. We're going out for
Okay, look at me.
visiting of
Everybody
the.
wanted a 2 and a 3. Kitty, why are you in here?
she's right there.
Get in here, sport.
This is kind of exciting that all you guys show up at one time and get on a bus like this. This is, to begin with, I'm going to refer to everybody as to how they're related to me, rather than try and sort this all out for each generation, and you'll have to figure it out from there. So we'll go down here in a minute, and I'll show you where my parents' graves are, and my grandparents and my great-grandparents, and also I have a sister and a brother here. So this is Sherman Cemetery. It is part of the town of Sherman, and that's where my folks have resided for many years, and grandparents. So anyhow, we'll walk down here and we'll talk as we get down there. Dad, Fred and Anna Bird, and next to them is my grandparents, Will, Jay, and Ivan. Now, what some of you may not ever know is that I had a sister, born on February 16th, 1940. They tell me she lived 2 hours. She had been 2 years younger than me. And Mom said that, well, she was born at home. We lived at Utz's at the time. And Mom said that her sister Florence Middlestead and Ida Utz, who Dad worked for, the two of them baptized her before she died. But she also said that Grandpa and Dad made her coffin. They were both pretty good with woodwork, and they made the coffin themselves out of wood, and Grandma lined it, and so that was.
She has a nice little spot.
Yep. What Bob and I run across after Grandma died was that it was many years later before they were able to buy a stone. I don't know, it was 1946 or 48. But anyhow, we found a receipt about stone for it. So. Next to it there, for your information, is Ray and Florence. When they got this lot, well, they set this all up for those people to be buried there. Down toward the other side over there is my brother Mel. And we can walk down there quick, and then we'll come back here. He passed away 10 years ago already. And his son Ronald was, I guess weighed less than 2 pounds. And we always said that if he were born today, he'd have lived. But at that time, they couldn't keep him alive. But Grandma and Grandpa Schaefer, Fred and May Schaefer. These are my Grandma Bird's parents. Iva Bird's parents. And, he moved up here around 1900, 1904 maybe, from Grant County. He brought his family up here, and I think 4 of his children were born in Grant County. The other 4 were born here in Dunn County. But he farmed Dunn County, right, just over the hill here. Is Kathy here?
Yep.
This is Elbridge's grandma.
Yep.
And,
Oh, grandma? This is Elbridge's grandma or mother?
well, Elbridge is the one that's your, yeah.
No, Elbridge is 65-ish.
Oh, that would be.
Aaron I graduated with.
Okay, yeah, that'd be his grandma.
Okay, all right.
Martha Grunderman.
I remember the name.
She's Mary's daughter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And, Dad's name was Bert. Bert Bird was my grandpa Bill's brother. They were, and Bert had 5 kids, and Mary and Grace, and I can't think of the other one offhand, but the boys' names was Elbridge, William Elbridge, and that's the one that lived over behind me.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And Harry was the youngest boy. And, okay, there's Harry. Yeah.
So he was Grandpa's cousin.
Yes. Yes, Harry was Grandpa's cousin, and she was Grandpa's cousin.
Okay.
And Elbridge is buried over at Tea Garden where Mom is. Elbridge and Gert. You didn't know Elbridge maybe, but you knew Gert.
Yep.
In fact, when Elbridge died, I looked at buying that farm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I went over to their place a time or two with Grandpa and Grandma when he was alive, when we go over to visit.
So. My grandma from, right? This is my mother's dad's mother, Herman and Tilly. Herman was born 2 weeks after his folks got to America. And Tilly said Tilly was 5 years old when she came to America. So, and they came from Prussia. What is known as Prussia. It's kind of up in the northeast corner of Germany. I think it was a part of Germany, a part of Poland, put together, known as Prussia.
Is it a region or was it a country?
It was an empire.
Herman's parents are here, William and Mary. And I don't know when they could come here in 1869, but I don't know is when they bought the farm over here. I don't think it was. I'm sure it was in the 1880s when they bought the farm over here with Galos. And when Herman got married, well, he run the farm. Took it over.
Was he the youngest child? Or did he have younger?
No, I can't tell you if he was the youngest one.
Just says she was already 35 years old.
Yeah. Well,
this was probably older. That was
When Mary's dead. Sure, this was Herman's brother. Then there were some girls in there. And they had 10 kids of their own, and they raised Bill and Mary for his brother's kids, and then they raised Harry. He was, I think Harry is a son of Herman's niece.
oh,
See, Herman's sister was married to a Mello, and their daughter was married to Jake Wingert. And when Harry was a year old or 9 months old, his mother died. And the story goes that Herman and Tilly were at that funeral, and this little guy was in his crib with a dirty diaper and a sour bottle of milk. And Herman said, "Why don't we just take him home with us?" So that's how he became their brother. Harry is around 85 years old. Without looking, he was born in about 26 or 27.
but Harry is actually a blood relative too.
Technically, he is, yeah.
A bit of a distant relative.
Yeah. So, now, we have some of their grandma has brothers and sisters buried here. Florence Middlestead is over here.
Oh.
Mabel Stubb is a sister to mom, to my mother. Is over here, and Eleanor, of course, is married to Dean. So those three are for sure in the same cemetery. Maybe more if I look around. Well, and Bill Crummeray is up here, and that's one of the two that Herman and Tilly raised, and that's Wilma's dad. Wilma Erickson's dad, Bill Crummeray. Bill and Gertie, they're up at the end of here. When I went and bought these lots, I came out here when they had the stakes set. But Kevin was getting ready to dig after Mom died. And I looked this all over and I said, "This don't look right." And I talked to Kevin about it, and we went back and checked. And it turns out that these two graves aren't in the right place. They're off. They're off the half of the grave. Hailed from out east. I don't know exactly right offhand which state he come from. I know that his wife Fanny Cowles came from Pennsylvania, up around State College area. But they went to Fort Madison, Iowa, and George Irvin was always in the lumber business to some degree. And according to the story that Ray told me was that when Knapp and Stout and Tainer and Smith, I think it was think it was them 4 guys, were in this lumber business. A couple of these guys were industrious, but they had no money, and they found these other guys with money, and they helped finance the Knapp Stoughton Company, which became the Knapp Stoughton Company in the end. According to the story, that after they were up and running sometime, their mills were not running right. They couldn't get good production. They chattered. They didn't saw straight, or whatever the case was. One of them said, "I know a millwright who can make this work," and it was George Irvin. So they went to Fort Madison and brought him up here, with the understanding that if he got all these to work in a year, they would offer him a partnership. And after he finished his work and everything was running, they offered him a partnership and he wouldn't take it. He said he'd rather be on his own. And from there, he went to Irvington and built his own basket factory on, well, what is now Irvin Creek, I suppose, but what did they call it then? Bullard Creek?
Bullard.
And I don't have the books with me now, but in one of them books, there was some articles from yesteryear, talks about George Irvin that were written 20, 30 years ago. And it talks about, shows pictures of him with his basket and talks about his basket factory. I think it's even in one of them family articles that we got too. The town of Irvington was kind of built around the sawmill, and everything owned there was Irvin's. Frank Irvin and his daughter Mary Ellen is who married Court Bird. And they had a hotel there, and they had stores there, and so he is Irvington. He owned a lot of land, 500 and some acres of land, I think, a lot of woodland at one time. His wife Fanny, they were separated for the last years of their lives, and she was living with one of their daughters down in Birmingham, Alabama, and that's where she died and where she's buried is in Birmingham, Alabama. Even though I went through Birmingham a couple years ago, I never stopped to try and find it. And she only died a short time before he did. They were.
Thought it was in months.
Yeah, I want to say 3 months, because I think that she died around the first of the year, and the daughter sent a letter to him telling she died, and apparently she was in pretty bad shape the last few months of her life, and then he died right after that. So
Pretty impressive that he was 86 years old in 1900.
well,
Actually, quite a few of these people that we've seen today have lived a long time.
I have a genealogy history, and I think come through Wanda or somewhere there. But anyhow, it goes back 90 generations. It goes back to about 1,000 years before Christ.
Wow.
I have that, and it shows each one that goes down. If you look through that whole thing, it's ironic. You know, a lot of families had half a dozen kids or more. But the one in our line has lived to be almost a minimum of 70 years. Very, very seldom does somebody lived a short life, so to speak. In our, if you look at a straight line, and one day I took it. I think I went backwards. Rather than from the top down, I went the other way, which is a different way of looking at it, but it was interesting. But it's something you need a lot of time to look at. Because you get back into about 1,000 or 1,200, this whole thing gets into monarchy, or it gets into kings and queens, and that's how they got all these records, because it's in. And then all of a sudden, they got down into 12 or 13 or 1400, and some gal decided to marry a commoner, and then that was the end of all the kings and queens. You know, and that's why you're just commoners and not part of Buckingham Palace.
Darn it.
One decision.
Darn it.
Yeah.
One bad decision. Look what happened. That's a lesson for you, Tucker.
He's like, what y'all talking about?
Marry the queen.
So
You can follow her around forever.
you're not sure where George came from. So who?
I thought it was Bradford County, Pennsylvania.
That could be.
But like when you're talking about this long history, who is that from then? The
It's to the bird.
oh, it's on the bird side.
So it's
Oh,
British.
okay.
British.
Well, yeah, kind of. Pretty much so. But when you get back to the past Nathaniel up in there somewhere, you get into the rough. It goes into the rough side, and eventually it gets back to Rogers, who came over in a Mayflower.
Mayflower Tucker.
But when you get back far enough,
Great Grand P
and
showed up on
start
the
looking
Mayflower.
at the monarchs, the kings and queens and stuff. You know, and maybe it was in England a while, and a few generations back it was in France, and then beyond that it was in Italy, and then it was in Asia. The early ones are in Asia.
Oh wow.
But it's almost like this thing had to move. I suppose for I don't know, just add new blood, I guess. But it was kind of strange to look at this, that it actually moved.
So Fred, you thought that George here was Pennsylvania, maybe?
If I remember, it was Bradford County.
And
That sounds right. And his wife was from Pennsylvania too.
Yeah. Something Corners. He was from.
7? Not 7 Corners?
No, 7.
But you
St.
think
Paul,
that
that's right.
you think that they like moved from there? Or you think that's
They
kind of
moved-
where they were born?
I think they might have even been married in Pennsylvania and then went to Iowa.
But did it seem like? Do you know? Were they born in the United States? Or?
Oh yeah, they were both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
And I think they're of English descent.
yeah. Annie Cowles. That Cowles family goes back
Yeah.
many generations, still in the States yet. Going back, I think the cow. One of them I just saw it just a little bit ago. It went back into New Jersey, Massachusetts is kind of our root zones.
I thought it kind of ironic. After Ray was in the healthcare center, I'd take him to the doctor or something, and nurse asked him what nationality he was, and he said, "I suppose English." And that struck me so funny because I always considered myself German, and like you guys would consider yourself more Norwegian, I'm sure.
Yep.
55, 60, 70%.
Mhm.
But I mean, you look at just them few generations, my dad and me, and there's a lot of Norwegian there, and then you get down, you got more Norwegian than
What do you got,
so,
Cabello
so how it changes in
or Gander?
a few generations. Cortland Bird's parents. And these are the ones that keep saying that left New Jersey and ended up and they homesteaded right up here in Kay. We'll stop by there on the way back. They each got 80 acres, so yeah. It just says father and mother on top. Yeah. And I'm not exactly sure who to tell you where it is. When were these born?
13.
1813.
No, he died at 1890.
See,
Oh, she died.
you look at, he lived 80 years and she was, what, 87? This one was born in 1881. I don't know. I don't have a clue who it's there.
It almost had to be a grand.
What years are those?
1813.
But he said, well, it wasn't quite that way, but that was,
Oh.
but Ray always said, well, so anyhow, and that's why I call it folklore, you know, you're not sure. But I think she married the dean after it because, man, she lived another 30 years. And I think this Fred Bird was
One of George's kids? Or
yeah, George Washington's kid. Now there's somewhere here there should be an Austin Dougal.
Are these the people that had all the kids born in October?
Yeah. And,
There's like 5 of their kids that are born, children that are born in.
you know, you can't hardly imagine this. This Matthias Schaefer, or Nathaniel Bird. It's kind of interesting when you look at both sides back here. But you take this Nathaniel Bird, you left New Jersey, and they worked their way this, I'm sure, with a wagon and maybe a cow or two, and I suppose oxen pulling it, or not even horses. But they kind of just moseyed along. And then Cortland was born in Portage County, which is down by Moundsville, Wisconsin. Or it's right near Portage. Portage, Wisconsin. Now, you know, that might not be Portage County either.
Columbia County.
Well, I don't think that's when he was born in. I gotta check my records. Portage is in Columbia County, but I think he was in the county north of that. Then they moved on, checking on where they lived. It's right at the intersection of Interstate 94 and Highway 93. So he maybe sold 100 years ago, so he didn't get caught in all the traffic. And then they moved to Dunn County. They were Prue Township a little while. And then they moved over to Menominee Township and homesteaded there. And they were 70 years old when they homesteaded there. Wow. Made their final homestead. So you spent your whole life just kind of moving west. It's kind of a...
And he's your great-grandfather?
This is my great-grandfather. But his parents would be my great-great-grandparents. Moved all that way. Now, this guy married Mary Ellen Irvin, which we'll get to this afternoon. Her dad is buried right next to where Fred lives. But they were married a few years, and they moved to South Dakota, Kingsbury County, South Dakota, because they could buy government land for, I don't know, $1 or something, and but they had to live there in order to get homesteaded. So they moved out there, and my grandpa Bird, Will J., was born in South Dakota. He was born in Kingsbury County, so they were there in 1882. In 1888, the story goes that they had a blizzard, a pretty bad one. And after that blizzard, he said, I'm not staying here any longer, and they moved back. And when they moved back, I don't know if they moved to Irvington or first or before they came to Otter Creek, but anyhow, they ended up homesteading just a little north of here, northeast of here. And he had 13 40s at one time.
Here in Dunn County.
Here in Dunn County, 520 acres. And part of that land he ended up selling to his grandson, Ralph Bird. And Ralph Bird farmed there all of his life. They also had a cabin up at Chetek. Their cabin at Chetek was on Mud Lake. As I understand it, it was called the Bird's Nest. Harry and Ella raised your mom. Her real mother is buried over there. Her mother died when Esther was born. And so then Harry and Ella took her and raised her. And then when she was about 10 years old, they had some trouble with another girl they had, so then they adopted your mom. Esther's dad still lived in Boston at the time, and so they got the paperwork around and adopted her, so she was legally their daughter. But Ella died, I think she was 55 or about when she died, and she had a stroke. Passed away very suddenly. I think she lived a day or two after she had the stroke. And of course, Harry, some of you remember, he was 1980.
Was it in June? Must be pretty close.
His funeral was
11th?
funeral was Friday the 13th. I think he died 11th.
Must have died on the 9th then. Is that your? Oh, that's your Fred gun, right? Yeah.
Sierra graduated.
Huh?
Sierra graduated.
Yeah. Yeah, Harry and Esther's mom, whose name was also Esther, were brother and sister, and their parents are buried over. We'll go over and check them out. Ella's maiden name was Rich, so whenever you hear about the Riches, well, that's where the Rich folks came from, and the Rich family was a big family. There was 12 or 13 kids, and Ella had 12 or 13 brothers and sisters. But like I say, I don't know where her folks are buried now. I just can't even think about where that was, unless it's in the big cemetery in Chicago. 12 hours old, I guess.
Perfect.
She had they figure she had a blood clot or something, and it killed her. Now, her parents are Herman and Selma Newman, and that must be the stone right behind us. And they farmed down by Dallas all their life. And Esther was Harry Newman's sister. She was the youngest sister. Harry was the oldest, and Esther was the youngest. And after Harry was Clara Berg, and then Albert, and then Esther. I think that's the right order. Albert was never married, bachelor all his life, and lived in Chetek in the later years. I guess he lived in Wheeler for a while, but Esther and her husband, Sigvald, bought the resort up at Chetek. Where Lefty's house sits was a large cabin for the family to live in. I suppose it was a 2-bedroom cabin type home. And then in that whole area there was about 6 or 7 small cabins that they would rent out for weekends or a week at a time for fishing and whatnot through the summer. And then when she died, Sigvald ended up going to the World War II, was in the service for a few years. And anyhow, the taxes never got paid or whatever, but Albert bought the land back for taxes. He paid the taxes on it and got that. That's how Albert ended up with the land. And then he always said, well, half of that would be Laverne's. And so that's when Laverne got of age, and they tore down the old cabin, and Laverne built that new house about in the same place.
Okay.
And he always said that when he passed away, the other chunk of land would go to Mom. And that's how she got the other chunk of land, and he lived in that little shack there for years.
That's how we got to inherit that resort.
I think Laverne got the better chunk of property, or at least buildings.
Well, somehow way back, and that was before I met your mother, he apparently sold some of that land. And I don't know just exactly what portion, and he gave Mom some money out of that. So, and through that he gave that to Lefty.
Land that went
further towards the big lake?
I think so. I think,
Oh, okay.
I don't know exactly where, but I think that was a pretty big area.
Oh, okay.
You know,
And Mom was born right on that property.
she was
right?
born in the old log house there. And the story goes that she had walked downtown that day. Mom's mother, Esther, and he was a little upset that she had done that because she was expecting, and then after Mom was born, then she had this blood clot and passed away. So I think it was always something for me to think about, that a girl without parents could grow up to be who she was. So her only regret in life was that her and Lefty weren't raised together. She always regretted that. And see, Lefty lived with grandparents.
And how far away was that?
They lived here. Well, when they sold the farm, they farmed right near Dallas. They may have been between Dallas and Chicago.
Oh, so
But I know in later years they had sold the farm and lived right in Dallas. When I knew Grandma Newman, they lived in Dallas, and Grandpa had lived there too. So, well then Lefty went to high school in Dallas for 1 year, and they closed the high school. So rather than go to Barron to high school, he went to Boston and went to high school. He stayed with his dad for 3 years and went to high school out there. But as soon as he was done high school, he came back. He at least didn't care for the area, and I'm not real sure he was too fond of what he saw out there with his dad, because whenever Mom would mention to go see her dad, he said, it's better if you don't. So I know that alcohol was a problem. So that's one of the things I mentioned to you guys, to be a little careful about alcohol, because he died of cirrhosis of the liver. And Lefty hasn't dared to have a drink for over 20 years. He told me the last time he had less than a half a glass, he was in the hospital for 3 days. Because his liver is that close to being gone. So that's just a weak spot in there. So. Now Herman Newman's mom that's Dieter. Was it Wilhelmina?
Wilhelmina, yeah.
Wilhelmina Dieter, which will go at the next cemetery. And as far as we know, his father must have died over in Germany before they came over here. And Selma, her parents are Keens, Adolf and Pauline Keen. I think that's the right spell, right pronunciation. Kuehn. I think somewhere in my stuff yet, I have papers for Selma Keen, where she had to sign a card every year or every 2 years that she was living in the United States, because she was not a U.S. citizen. She was an immigrant, and they had to every so often sign a card if they were here. I knew Selma Keen, and she died on no, she didn't either. I think her birthday was around the first part of October, and we went to her. I think her 80th birthday was either on Fred's or Jim's baptism date. I think you guys were both baptized the first weekend in October, and I know one of them days we won't celebrate her birthday. But then she died like the next year. She died in '63.
Yep.
She died in, I think she died in May, right around this time. I'd have to check the actual date, but it's about this time of year she died. Because Ella called us and told us, and then Ella died that same year in October. But she was about 82. Herman, I never knew. What else can I tell you? This is Selma Newman's parents.
Scrapbook this one.
This is Pauline name. Stacy Pauline and Kathy Pauline. Named after. And also, what they maybe don't remember is that Esther, it was Esther Pauline Larson. Esther Pauline Newman. So the name Pauline has gone through it. This just a V roof with a lean-to on it, and it was a fairly dainty house.
Think one will fit on the bus?
And a dainty upstairs. Because now Winifred lived here too. Yeah. Yeah. When they came and took Winifred away, that's when mother's daughter.
Oh.
And
So Winifred was a rich then.
yeah, Winifred Rich. And they,
No.
no. And her sister came, or her folks came and got her. They came and got her at night, brought her things. Left, never really said.
I was gonna say, is there something in there?
But she lived with, she was raised like a sister with her mother
Yeah.
until her parents came and got her again.
She was about the same age as me. I got a call from a woman in Snyder. I think she married a Snyder, but she said that we paid for their dance 50 years ago. Yeah. I think we started at 54 playing for dances. Before that, we had played for a lot of PTAs. And somebody would hear us, they say, well, come play for this PTA, or we go play for the Dunn Electric co-op meeting, or we go play for the Farmers Union meeting. And to keep all political sides equal, we go play for the Farm Bureau. So politically, we played for everybody. We crossed paths, and nobody threw us out.
So you started out playing because of 4-H?
No, we were playing before 4-H. Keith got their accordion about 53, and he started playing our accordion, and we had a set of drums upstairs. And one day, Gary talked Keith into coming upstairs with his accordion, and Gary started playing on the drums. And it was cold up there, so when Ma heard it, she said, well, you don't have to stay up there that cold, bring them drums down here. So that Gary and Keith were playing there, and Bob was taking saxophone lessons already. I was in high school. So then we kind of all started playing a little bit. Then we got music so we could play together.
She's the only mom ever that said, bring the drum set closer to me.
And of course, Al had been through high school. He played the tuba. Gary's question always is, how come did the folks allow Mel to play the tuba? And they even went and Daddy would took Mel to Dallas and water too long. And they got it home and it wouldn't work right. And after Mel monkeyed with it for a while, he discovered that they had two valves tripped out. He put the valves in the right hole and they said that'll work fine. And he played that for years, that old tube valve. But Mel had played for 2 or 3 different dance bands. He played for Dell's Old Time and Fred Clemens. So Mel had been in the dance business a little bit. So when Maggie asked us to play for a dance, we said, now what? Because we maybe only knew about 12 tunes. And, but me and Mel had been in this a little bit. He helped us what to do and how to do it. And we had gone to see Whoopie John a couple times. So we ended up getting a lot of music at that time and learning it. We played for about 10 years.
You went watching Whoopi John? Is that what you said? You went watching Whoopi John someplace?
Yeah, at the 400 Club as kids. Oh, yeah. I think we went a couple of times.
Where did you go to see them?
At the 400 Club, where Rosbach's is. Rosbach's furniture. But we played for about 10 years, from about 55 to 65 on a regular basis.
Big old hawk. What a cracker with.
Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
Oh, was it?
It was a big old hawk.
Oh,
And it went right between this big semi that was coming and this bus. And so if she would have hit it, she would have not had it.
but I always figured we lost a little black book that we kept all of our dance dates in. Somewhere that disappeared. And because I don't like to look at that and checked it out. But I think that we averaged a dance a week for them 10 years. Because there were times we'd play both Friday and Saturday night. Maybe sometimes one during the week. But once in a while we'd have a weekend off and then we'd play at least twice a week a lot of times. And,
How many hours did you play like that?
4 hours.
3-hour gig or 4-hour gig?
9 to 1 o'clock. 9
Like 4?
4 hours. And we took a little intermission about 12 o'clock. And we played at a lot of different places. The one in Menominee, there was a 400 Club. We went to Glenwood City, that was a White Owl. We went to Hershey, that was a Grey Goose. The Grey Goose went down in a big snowstorm a couple days before you were born. Played at Lions over in Bloomer. Played at Richardson's, that's up by Clayton. We played in Arkansas. There's a jillion other places, a lot of community halls, fishing game, and a lot of different halls like that. But them were the dance halls. And they were always had a lot of fans, a lot of people.